It's EWA Podcast number 26, and I couldn't be happier to bring Jon on. We touch on a lot of different subjects and talk about literally everyone in the Fed at least once, so be sure to give it a listen.
I will remember you. Will you remember me? Don't let your life pass you by.
And welcome, everyone, to the EWA Podcast. It's back and better than ever, and I know I say that every time, but it's because I honestly believe that every time I come back with a podcast, it is better than the previous one. And really, anytime you have Brian Powers on a podcast, there's no way the next one can't be better. So while we're shooting low this time, I feel really good about my guest I have here this evening. And I'm happy to welcome him back. It's not his first time on the podcast, not his first podcast, and it's someone that I've wanted to have on for a while, but just haven't been able to work out a schedule with him. But glad that he's here. Jon, welcome back to the EWA Podcast, my friend.
Hello, it's good to be back.
And that's not an impersonation, folks. That's actually Jon on the podcast. I know a lot of you were thinking he's just doing an interview with himself, pretending to be Jon, but that's not the case.
No, this definitely isn't Craig speaking.
Sweet deal. Jon, I was just thinking as I was going through that intro, a couple years ago, did you think that you would ever have, like, between the Bagpipe Report and the EWA podcast, like 6 or 7 podcasts under your belt this time?
No. I couldn't imagine it, to be honest.
You were never, like a couple years ago, you weren't thinking, I'm probably going to be on like 6 or 7 wrestling podcasts in my life?
Well, I was like dreaming that would happen, but yeah, obviously I didn't think it would.
Well, I feel like that's the ultimate goal of the EWA podcast for me, is I'm trying to make people's dreams come true, Jon.
I think you're doing a good job.
Well, I'm doing what I can, and I'm just glad that people listen and people enjoy them. Now, we've got a lot of stuff to touch on. Summer Stampede is in the books as of yesterday, and a lot of stuff happened at Summer Stampede, which is to be expected. It's kind of the Summer Slam of the EWA. Kind of the second big show of the year, and, Newt mentioned that in the feedback. But let's start with, the biggest news coming out of Summer Stampede. It was, I'm going to go ahead and call it 20 months worth of a retirement build-up. But it's finally happened, Jon. Please tell us that it's finally happened.
It finally happened.
Was Summer Stampede the end of EWA Steve Corino?
It was indeed.
It was.
Say goodbye.
It was actually a pretty decent goodbye, and
Only decent.
I don't. What's that?
Only decent.
Pretty decent, yeah.
Oh.
As far as goodbyes go, I gotta ask you. Let's go back to Super Brawl, where it was intended to be the end of Steve Corino's run. Now, did you have intentions of Super Brawl being the end for Steve Corino?
Well, when I first announced the retirement, it was definitely my intention to end there. But, as the year went on, sort of, it just, that idea in the back of my head sort of got bigger and bigger. And I thought, well, I could potentially use this as a springboard to go a little bit further, have some more fun, and do something a bit different with Corino, which I haven't really done in, 7 years or something. So it wasn't always on the cards, but it was something that, I got more and more into the more I thought about it.
Yeah, that's understandable. And also during Super Brawl week, you were a captain, and you drafted your team, which consisted of Kurt Angle, CM Punk, Richie Steamboat, and who's the last one I'm missing?
Al Snow.
Al Snow, that's right. Now, originally you had drafted Teasy with CM Punk. Now, what happened during the course of that week to where CM Punk got put on the reserve and Richie Steamboat was brought in? Was that by design, or did something happen during that time period where Teasy just couldn't make it?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't by design. The idea was to have Teasy as a big sort of hired gun sort of thing. It turned out I think it was his granddad was really sick during that week, and eventually I think his granddad actually passed away, and there was no way any of us were expecting them to role play under
Right.
those sort of circumstances. But fortunately, we had a good backup in Brady, who just stepped in and stepped up to the plate, and yeah, thankfully he was able to do the business for us.
Right, and I don't know how long that the alternates have been around in Super Bowl, but I would imagine or think, and you're probably the person to ask, or Newt obviously, that's probably the first team with the use of an alternate that's won Super Bowl.
Quite possibly. I can't think of another one, but I could be wrong.
I mean, is the alternate of the team been in place for a while now?
Oh yeah. The alternate's been in place, I think, pretty much since I've been here, so at least 2007.
Now, of course, Super Bowl ended with 3 men in the ring. There was Steve Corino, Cody Rhodes, and Val Venus, and it was a very hectic finish that saw, it saw a heel turn at the end of it where Corino turned on Rhodes, who he had become very close with. Obviously, this is kind of a turn and story that, you helped come up with, I'm sure with Newt's help, and this was an idea that you had planted in his head. Did the ending of Super Bowl come across, aside from the win, how you wanted it to?
Absolutely how I wanted it to. It was, I suggested a couple of different outcomes depending on whether I won or lost.
Right.
And yeah, Newt pretty much nailed the one where I won, basically. The only frustrating thing was it seemed like afterwards, no one really took it as like a proper heel turn. Like they saw it as him sort of just using dodgy tactics to try and win, rather than actually turning full-blown heel, which led to like the next time we had a slam, Corino basically did turn full heel, shitting on the fans, and I think that was when we had a little bit of a Corino-Cody in-ring segment where I think Corino might have sucker punched Cody or something like that.
Yeah, well, coming out of Super Bowl, we all had the mentality of, it kind of ended with 3 faces in the ring, and it was, while it was a clear heel turn, none of us really wanted to, think John's going to go full-on heel with Corino. So I remember we had to come out that first slam and really drill home, hey, Steve Corino's a dick now, just so everybody knows. And then you moved on from Super Bowl right into a feud with Nealon and Brent Albright, and then you went on from that to feud with Andre and Bobby Lashley. You have any thoughts or things you want to talk about with those 2 feuds?
Well, I think I thought Nealon did really well at Super Bowl, and was someone who I thought had the potential to be a good breakout Grand Slam championship challenger, and he didn't disappoint when we went up against each other. Geez, that was a really tough match. And the same can be said in certain respects for Andre as well. He came in and took the Fed by storm.
Right.
Pretty much, racked up so many wins in so short a time. It was almost impossible not to have him be the next contender for the title.
Right.
But I think, fortunately for me, he basically, the week of our match, he basically, that was when he dropped out of the Fed, so gave me a bit of a bye there.
Well, sometimes, when it comes to the EWA, it's super hyper competitive, and it's nice to be the champion and know that you're the best in the game. But sometimes it's okay to have a little bit of luck go along with that,
Oh yeah. I've had a lot of luck as well over the past year.
You're way too modest. You're an extremely talented writer, and we all know that. But this isn't a dick-sucking competition, so we'll continue on. And then you moved on from that feud, and I believe, now I didn't check your history before we started this podcast, but that's where you kind of got tied into the Bray Wyatt storyline, and then Brent Albright wound up coming back in there, right?
Well, before that was Ken Anderson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Anderson won the Civil War.
Exactly,
which is something, I've already blocked that from my memory, so you can see why I would forget that.
Yeah, that was a really cool feud as well, because we had Brett, involved in that because of the whole Val Venus Anderson feud that was going on at the same time. And I really enjoyed, working that together. So Corino is conspiring with Val Venus and Ted DiBiase to try and mess with Anderson and screw him over and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
There's three super talented writers working together on a convoluted storyline as well. So that came out really well. But you managed to best Mr. Anderson again. And I won't lie, I remember going into that pay-per-view, a lot of people thought that, BP might have had you that week. And I'm sure you probably thought it too, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was around the sort of time where I was feeling a little bit, where at a certain point as champion, it starts catching up with you. Like
no, I don't know what that feels like. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely at that point where I was thinking, trying to think of like a new, place to put Carino and role plays and different ideas and stuff. And it's like, I don't know how I came out of that one on top.
And then you head into your next match with Kyle's Bray Wyatt and once again Nealon's Brent Albright. And you wound up coming up on the losing end, but as you said, when you're on top, it's so difficult to stay on top. And not taking anything away from K2 and his win, because clearly he's a super talented writer, and we saw that throughout the course of this summer. But it has to be draining and difficult to stay at that level of consistency for that long. Even for someone as talented of a writer as you are, John, it's got to be difficult to stay that highly consistent for that period of time.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're up against someone like K2, who's just an incredible writer. Like, I think he blows me out of the water. I'm not being modest there. I honestly believe that as well. He's just, the way he writes is basically, how I imagine, like, a proper writer, like, writing novels that can be read by thousands of people, sort of thing.
Right.
And that's not to discredit Nealon there either, because I thought he was way better than me that week as well. So, yeah, it was a really tough one. And
so what was your reaction to the outcome of that match? Is it like a sense of balance of like relief and disappointment, or did one outweigh the other?
No, it was pretty balanced. I mean, I knew my first roleplay that week was garbage, pretty much. Like, it was essentially Carino and Arn Anderson falling out for like the third or fourth month in a row.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I've been struggling with like proper ideas for ages. And then the second RP I did was where Carino goes and meets Abyss. He's no longer Abyss, but he's Chris Park, like trying to start again as like a lawyer or something, which I really enjoyed doing. It's probably my favorite RP I've done like this year, pretty much. But yeah, I just knew reading everyone else's, it wasn't good enough. And so when you know that, it's like hard to feel too disappointed, even though I would have liked to have gone on. And I mean, in the perfect world, I would have loved to have faced Kevin Steen at the next pay-per-view and like gone out there as champion. But it didn't happen.
Oh, that's not. The EWA is far from a perfect world, my friend.
Yeah.
But then after that, you started your feud with Richie Steamboat, Dick Blood, whatever he'd like to go by now. And at that point, whenever you got into that feud with Brady, did you have this retirement angle in mind, or is that something that came over time?
That was something that was basically on the card since Super Bowl. Since I decided to stick around with Carino and like try and get as much mileage as I could out of him being Grand Slam champion. I always knew once I lost the title, we'd get into the feud with Brady and put Richard Blood, or Richie Steamboat as he was known then, over big time.
And absolutely. So it was a proper fitting, and Richie and Steve Carino have a rich history, and so it was the perfect foil to send Carino off. And I'm assuming, once again, much like with Super Brawl, that you were happy with how everything turned out at Summer Stampede.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a little bit of issues with, as I'd written a segment, like, building up to the, the pre-match stuff for the main event, like, based around the idea of us going on after the Grand Slam championship match, but it's easily fixed, and I don't think it really affected it too much either. I think Newt's been really cool about it anyway. He's edited the show to stick in like a couple of replacements, just dialogue bits and whatnot to make.
Right, that was good, and I was about to ask you what your thoughts were on that match going on as the main event. Was that also something that you had planned? I mean, not that you're the kind of person that would undermine, the Grand Slam title scene in any stretch of the imagination, but is that something that was talked about before, or was that just something that happened during the course of Newt writing that pay-per-view?
No, he told us in advance. He actually PM'd me to say, you guys are going to go on last about a week or so beforehand, which is like a huge honor and like mark of respect, and I can't thank Newt enough really, because it feels good to sort of feel appreciated enough to go on that, even though it's just a silly game and whatnot. But
no. I mean, you give your time and effort to something, and, you do it at such a high level like you did with one character over the course of, 7, 8, 10 years now, and, you deserve to have, that kind of respect, especially if you are going out. But I'll hold my judgment until Super Brawl week comes and we see what happens with Steve Corino. But, you can laugh about it now, but we both know come that week, you're going to be getting messages saying, hey, man.
Oh, I know.
How do you feel about coming back? All right, now Steve Corino is gone. Is tribute show next week? Him coming out and thanking everyone. Are we going to see or hear from Steve Corino next week on Slam?
No, not at all.
Not at all. All right.
I considered it's all that's it. Slam Stampede was like drawing a line under everything.
All right then. So what is next for Jon at this point?
Next for Jon is taking it easy for a while.
Right.
Pretty much. I need to take a break from role playing, I think, because that's the thing I've struggled with the most. Like, I can work feuds, I can write matches, but role playing has just been such a struggle recently. So definitely take a break, and then I don't know. I mean, I've considered maybe picking up a tag team
right
next time whenever I come back. I've thought about, because I don't want to give Steve any praise here, but the idea of doing something original like the Zig Swag, where he's like pair two guys together who aren't together in real life, but made a pretty effective team out of them. That sounds like a pretty cool challenge to me. And
do you think that when you do come back, everyone will know it's you, or do you think you'll come back under the radar?
No, I'll make it obvious it's me. I've done secret characters before, but I'd definitely make this. It would just be me, basically.
All right, well, I'm going to hold you to that until we see, some random team win. So we see, Chris Masters and Carlito win the tag titles, and nobody knows who it is. It's Jon the whole time. Well, Jon, like I said, Steve Corino has such a rich history in the EWA and apparently ROH before then. I'm not 100% positive. So I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you a couple questions. Of all of the feuds that you've had with Steve Corino in your past, which one stands out to you the most as, your favorite or the one you enjoyed the most?
That's a tough one. I mean, the obvious answer would probably be the virtual feud. But at the same time, that was really draining, emotionally. So, all the torture Virtual was putting Corino through ended up, it felt like it was happening to me in a sense. It was like, stop taking pictures of my naked sister and stuff. Leave her alone.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really enjoyed the feud with Dean last year, which we didn't have a lot of time to do, but it was really cool to feud with JD, who had loads of great ideas. And it's always fun to feud against K2 as well, whether it's Homicide or Bray Wyatt.
And throughout all those feuds and every everything that's happened, is there one particular, I don't know, segment, for lack of a better word, but is there one particular thing or, action that happened in a feud that kind of stands out to you, or that you were like, that when we did that was really awesome? Do you remember when we did that kind of thing?
I'd probably say the end of the virtual feud where Colby sort of comes back to Carino after being estranged from him for it must have been about 8 months or something by that point.
Yeah.
To finally have him come back, that was pretty cool. Only, I guess, I pretty much shat all over that when Carino turned heel, but...
Yeah. All right, win or loss, what is your favorite match from Steve Carino's EWA history?
Whoa. Well, the last one definitely is up there. I thought that was pretty much as good a match as I've ever written. But aside from that, I'd probably say when Carino was GM and he was up against Steve Blackman, and it was Carino's GM position versus Blackman's career, and basically it looked like Blackman won the match, only for Shane McMahon, who was still owner at the time, to step in and point out that Blackman had cheated, so he restarted the match, and Carino ended up winning. But that one got a lot of good feedback, which was really nice. I think it was King of the Ring 2010 or 11 or something like that.
Okay, so that was a little, well, I guess it's 2014 now. I was going to say more recent. These years sneak up on you, John.
Yeah.
Well, you've had quite an immaculate run. Steve Carino, at least in my time here, has always been considered, if not a main event player, then right there in the upper echelon. Never below an A- with the level of your work, and so just deadly consistent. Again, I know how you are, John, and I know you're super optimistic and you really do enjoy people's work, but who do you think has the ability to step into that Steve Carino-like role in the EWA now and be, can you see with an elongated run of high-quality work for not just now or in the recent future, but for perhaps an elongated stay at the top of their level?
Well, I really hope Dean Ambrose does. I think Corey's done such a awesome job with him, character-wise and just the way he writes it and everything. He's completely nailed his own thing there. But I've got a fear that maybe he's starting to feel a bit burnt out already, which I hope isn't the case. Aside from that, I think Dean is one of those guys who has the potential. I think JD has always sort of struggled at the last hurdle sort of thing. He's had lots of really good runs and come really close to becoming Grand Slam champion and everything, but it just seems that last hurdle he struggled to get over, which I hope happens sooner rather than later, really.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and switch gears now. I want to talk about some other stuff going on in the EWA. You talk about Corey maybe struggling to find that to keep those creative juices going, but perhaps all he needs is just a new feud and a new direction to go in. Coming out of Summer Stampede, who do you see being that challenger for the Grand Slam title? Who do you see Dean Ambrose facing off against in the next few weeks to the next month?
Well, I mean, the obvious choice would probably be Richard Blood, but that's just my bias, really, I guess, coming off Summer Stampede.
Right.
But I don't know, I'm liking the fact that you've got the DDP and Kevin Steen feuding at the moment, even though it is a hilarious, starting point for the feud with Bill Coffey and everything.
Right.
So I think you got a good contender there, potentially. Or maybe even, you could just say the DDP anyway, because, he won at Summer Stampede and has a bit of momentum behind him.
Right.
Aside from that, I mean, there's not a lot of obvious choices at the moment.
And there really isn't. You know, we're talking about guys like, Dylan is out, Bryce is out, now you're out. K2 seems to have taken, a step back and has some stuff going on. JD went missing the week of Summer Stampede. Brett and myself, not to throw ourselves in that ring, but, we're tied up in the tag team scene right now. I'm not saying that the options are limited, but, we had that thread where Newt was wanting suggestions and, what can we do to improve the EWA. I know you spoke at length verbatim in there, but, what do you feel do we need to do to help, when these people are leaving, we're going to have to bring in new people, of course, but, it's tough, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're helped slightly by it being King of the Ring next month, because that's always a good way of, someone stepping up and, someone who maybe not necessarily is someone that was, considered a main event player beforehand, but they'll surprise you. They'll throw out a bunch of role plays and then walk out King of the Ring, and I think that could be a good way of bringing up not just one person as well. Like whoever makes it to the final with the winner is also going to get a bit of a rub as well.
Right. I kind of looked at King of the Ring and I looked at the contenders, and you got to think, guys like DDP and Richard Blood were the first two that were brought to my mind. But then it was also guys like if Steve really wanted to commit to, pushing Big E, I think he had done good work up until the point where he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. But that's not Steve's fault per se, because I know he wanted the national title shot, and Jeff seems to have also fell off the face of the earth with D'Angelo De Niro, which is sad because he had been riding a good amount of momentum and was really doing good things with the De Niro character. I personally, I think the national title scene needs to see a bit more life in it right now.
Yeah, I think I'd agree, to be honest. I mean, it's another one where there isn't any really obvious contenders right now. But I think there's guys who could step up, obviously Chris is doing some really good work with Shelton Benjamin and improving, like I said in the feedback, he's improving every week pretty much, which is really cool to see. And then you've got guys like Garrett Bischoff, who's just signed up and put together a few wins already, and he looks like he's found his style and he knows what he's doing, so he could be a good contender as well, I guess.
Hey, you got guys like, Cameron just recently signed up as a tag team. You'd like to see him stick around for more than a cup of coffee and, potentially do some good stuff with that tag team. Obviously, I have a vested interest in it, but I would love to see the tag team division get some more action in it and have a few more contenders than it does right now. Not saying that it doesn't, and not saying it's not competitive or or anything like that, but it would be nice to see some new tag teams come up in the ranks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the tag team scene is one of those ones where it's never as bad as it seems. I mean, I think the problem with the tag team scene is, the Vegas connection have been so dominant in it for so long that, I don't know, I guess a lot of people are just sort of afraid to jump into it, really. But at the moment, it's all wide open. I mean, you guys proved that when you won the titles on Slam the other week.
It was funny. I had pitched the idea to Brett of starting a tag team, and he had nothing else going on, and he said, yeah, that's a great idea. And I remember saying to Brett, you can check our, Google chat logs. I was like, let's just reach out to someone and build a story and have some fun. I was like, because the last thing I want to do right now is just be tied up in forced matches, championship matches where you don't really get to pick your opponent and blah, blah. Yeah. And then the next week, Newt was like, Val Venus and Cody Rhodes versus these two for 2 straight weeks. I was like, son of a bitch. Don't get me wrong. Like, I definitely did not mind going up against Brian and Nealon because, I think the world of those guys. But I remember telling Brad, I was like, well, I guess so much for doing what we had set out to do. Let's just go win the titles now. So, it makes it tough, but at the same time, we're gracious for the opportunity. And, there's a couple of, people in the women's division as well doing some pretty good work. That include Brady and Chris. Chris's stuff with AJ Lee has been pretty solid as well.
Yeah. It was a really tightly contested match, I thought, this week as well. I thought both Brady and Chris, really did some solid work. And, I wouldn't have fancied judging the match, to be honest.
Now, if we could... Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then you got, the horsewomen as well, 4 horsemen.
Yeah. Now, you do take a look. There are some people that are currently away right now from the roster just by taking a look at it. Cleve is having his medical stuff with the shingles, and Bully Ray was going really well. And I know you could kind of tell that Newt was really giving him a push in the right direction.
Yeah.
He looks like he's wanting to push Bully Ray as he had that match with Bray Wyatt on Slam, the 13th anniversary that he wound up getting the win in. Chris Jericho was around and then went away. I really liked what he was doing. He had started to build some major momentum and make that character his own. And then there's MVP, who James has taken a step away. So, there are guys ready to, when they're ready to come back, guys even like Al Snow, like if Dylan brought him back, he could bring him back at a high level right now.
Absolutely. I think this is pretty much as wide open as I've seen this Fed, to be honest. It's just the roster seems so thin at the moment, with people taking breaks or stepping back or whatever. There's spaces out there just waiting for people to take them, really. So,
Kyle had Xavier Woods. There's Tomko.
Yeah, Kingston. Man, I can't believe Will's gone.
Yeah, Eddie Kingston had a nice run for a while, and it's just, it's tough. You have to. This isn't something you can do as like a recreational hobby. It's not the same as watching wrestling. Writing it's time consuming and can be frustrating, and you can get the writer's block. But I think those that stick with it and those that do it at a consistent level get out what they put in.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been fortunate in the fact that I work in such a shitty job that I basically have so much free time. I can write role plays and matches and whatnot at work. So that's always. Do
you have a computer at work, or do you access everything via phone, or what?
No, we've got a computer. I used to take my laptop in and write everything on there, and then they basically cracked down on that, so I ended up doing it on my phone for a little bit, but then they actually gave us a computer, so it's like, wow.
Like, stop bringing in stuff to waste time, just waste time on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what they said, so
it's either writing role plays or playing Spider Solitaire. That's what I get paid for.
Now, I want to go back to that thread about ways the EWA can improve. I want to talk about that real quick. There were a lot of suggestions in there. Things such as, on one end of the spectrum, they wanted to bring in potentially a new belt or new announcers, all the way up to, we need to reach out to the new members and not haze them and all that stuff. I mean, what are your opinions on all that? What do you think needs to happen? What would help make the EWA a better place right now?
Well, I think the thing we're lacking at the moment, more so than anything, is new blood. So definitely trying to draw in as much new blood as possible is the best way forward, as far as I can tell. And I thought Steve's suggestion about setting up an EWA Facebook page is not a bad idea at all, actually.
An EWA what?
Facebook page.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to draw some more people in, because I'm not sure how much good
the banners.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, I've always been an advocate for them, but I'm really not sure if they're doing the job at the moment.
Right. I'll go ahead and put this out there as well. I went on Reddit to a creative writing subreddit that it was like creative writing wrestling type thing, and I was like, hey, if anybody wants to join an EFED, shoot me a PM, and I'll give you all the details. And then someone replied and was like, what is it? And like I hit reply, and then I just sat there for like 5 minutes. I was like, I have no idea how to explain this. Like, well, whenever you put it out on paper, it's just like, you write something, he writes something, Newt judges it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, so it's just like in-ring promo stuff? And I was like, no, it's just like, you're following your guy around in real life. Like, I couldn't explain it. We've all, like I said, whenever we've had to explain it to real people, like I did with my coworkers that one time, but, I think a couple of them came over and actually signed up. I only had 4 or 5 people interested, but I didn't know how to explain it to them. I just kept saying, just come over and check it out.
Yeah.
Like, just look and see if it's your thing.
I used to have it where my housemate thought I was writing, like, gay porn. He's like, oh, it was then that Steve Perino took down his pants and bummed Lance Storm in the ass or something. It's like, what? No, it's way more complicated than that. That's all proper writing.
It's way more complicated than 2 dudes fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure how to go about, I tried to put our name out there, but at the same time I was like, I don't know how to explain this to you. Like, so you have a guy, but your guy has to be real, but you can let your guy do whatever he wants? I'm like, yeah. And then, you just, like, tell stories about your guy, and your story is judged against another guy's story. And, yeah, so, I think another thing we need to be looking to do, too, and Newt did a good job before with people like Vicky Guerrero and Eddie Kingston, is, I'm not saying Steve should just openly recruit at TNA, but, if we're in other EFEDs, we need to be looking at, some of their guys that aren't where we're at and saying, hey, like, here's a great alternative, laid-back atmosphere, stuff like that. But like I said, that's tough. In 2014, John, I feel like, EFEDs are... the people don't know about them, and they don't know...
Yeah.
They don't know, and even whenever you explain it to them, they still don't know exactly what it is, so it's hard to bring in new people.
It's like Chris has signed up, he's like 22 years old, and like when I was 22 years old, I'd already been e-fedding for about 8 years.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know, I guess it's, I don't know, with iPhones and like apps and stuff, not to sound like really old and stuff, but, back in my day, we didn't have that sort of thing, so...
Right, there are EFEDs that are strictly run through Facebook now.
Really?
Yeah, there are EFEDs that are run through Facebook. There's an EFED that's on Reddit. I forgot what it's called, but it's run strictly through Reddit. And, you post your promos up on there. But I've seen the ones on Facebook. There's one out there, and I forgot who provided me the link. It was either Brett or Steve, or it might have been Ed showing somebody else. But it was like wrestlers, and you could give the wrestlers, like, otherworldly things, and, like, The Rock was, like, half snake. From like from like his chest down, he was a snake, and it was it might have been Newt that posted. I don't remember, but it was completely messed up. But yeah, they probably run EFEDs through Twitter now and everything. So there are big EFEDs out there, probably like the EWA, that have been around for a long time and have had good people there and stuff. But I don't know. I don't even remember how I came about finding the EWA and how I wound up staying there or anything. So, to be new, we probably need to get in the minds of these new people and find out, what's drawing them in.
Absolutely.
And another big thing aside from bringing in new people is, we need we need more consistency from other people, like, JD and, I can see James come back and Cleve and Dylan, kind of like I said. But I don't think the EWA is in a bad place right now.
No, it's a thing where we're nicely ticking over at the moment, but we could definitely be doing a lot better. Like, as I said, you can't really put the blame on like one person or just a couple people. But I don't like to see it the worst or anything. We'll bounce back. We've had like worse periods than this, and survived them. So I've got no worries whatsoever that we'll be kicking ass again, especially by the time Super Bowl rolls around.
Absolutely. And I think things like, or like people said in there, and I'm probably just as guilty of this, but things like, the power rankings and the magazines and the constant extra stuff is what gives people a reason to, not the only reason, but gives people extra motivated to go out and do things. Because, the power rankings are arbitrary, and it's just Newt's opinion, and it doesn't mean anything, but, people take a look at stuff like that.
Yeah. It's one of those nice extras which, when you have it, updated regularly, it looks good. But, I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most important of, things to have going on in the Fed. But at the same time, when you do have it and it's not updated, I don't know, it might sort of reflect badly on the place. But, I think it's one of those things where we could, Newt could spend lots of time worrying about that, or we could spend lots of time worrying about, making sure the results are as good as possible instead. So,
right.
Right,
it becomes a balancing act, and, you want to make sure that your priorities are in the right place, and I'm sure Newt would never prioritize the power rankings over the, the credibility or quality of results. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So
that's where it might be a good thing to have other people step up and, especially for stuff like the magazine. If we bring that back, if we could get regular, contributors to that, that'd be awesome. Take some of that pressure off me, to have him still in charge and maybe even assigning people articles and stuff to write about. That'd be a good way of doing it, where the pressure's off him a bit, and it's up to us to get more involved with the Fed and actually write that stuff up,
What do you think about Corey's new idea of watching an older pay-per-view and then discussing it?
Oh, I love it. I love going back to watch the old stuff. It's just why I can't get the WWE Network, because I'll be doing that all the time.
Well, I got you a real gem this week, my friend, the 1993 Survivor Series.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched it back in the day, but I can't remember much about it at all.
I tried to watch the first match last night, and there wasn't an elimination for 14 minutes, and I was like, people are going to hate me for picking this one. I was like, but I don't care. They're going to have to sit through it. So, yeah. All right, well, I think I got everything I need here. This has been, tremendous. We touched on everything I wanted to touch on. I'm pretty sure we talked about every single person in the Fed at least once, which is, something I wanted to do coming into here because, a lot of people haven't been recognized for their work, and, guys like Kyle with his K2, this has really kind of been, his summer. Even though we've seen the ascension of Dean Ambrose, I feel like this summer has belonged to Bray Wyatt more than any other character in the EWA.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's been involved in pretty much all the, top storylines that have gone on. So,
yeah, I think if he rededicates himself, and I know it's hard to come back after a loss like that, especially, whenever you felt like you had a chance but just didn't have time to get it done. I'd love to see him rededicate himself. I would love to see him, make a run at King of the Ring.
Yeah.
I think he could do some serious fun stuff with the Wyatt character and the story of the King of the Ring, and probably do some tie-ins with that. Clearly not trying to put any pressure on K2, because there are other guys out there that, are poised and ready. I mean, it literally would not surprise me to see Cleve come back with Bully Ray and just bum rush the King of the Ring tournament and win it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And, a guy like James can make a comeback, and, it could be planned all along with Newt, and then, this thing is still wide open right now. I feel like there are no tiers right now in the EWA, and if there are, they're just not clearly defined right now, because there's just a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people surging in different directions right now, and it's the EWA, man. We saw on the 13th anniversary of Slam, and any given week, anybody can beat anybody.
Exactly. I think that's the best thing about this place. It's just, people might have certain reputations for being good writers and stuff, but you don't know what they're going to write until you've actually read it. And if you don't worry about that and just write your own thing and write as best as you can, then who knows what's going to happen. We're all really good in our own way, at what we do. So
You're right, except for Dylan.
yeah.
I'm just kidding, Dylan. It's your turn to come on the EWA podcast very soon, my friend. It's been too long. But John, I want to thank you for coming on. I know it's late over there right now. It's actually like 6:30 here in the States, and it's like past midnight over there?
Yeah, it's nearly 1 o'clock.
Yeah, but you're going to stay up and watch Raw, aren't you? Because these last 2 weeks of Raw have been stellar.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to record Raw and then probably fast forward it. And
I would tell you that I'm looking forward more to your write-up of the 1993 Survivor Series than another Raw write-up or rant that you have. But I totally agree with where you're coming from. People don't want to hear about the WWE in these podcasts, though, so you're all fucking welcome because I've done a favor for all of you by not talking about it. So, John, is there anything you'd like to say now that Steve Corino is done and gone to the members of the EWA?
Pretty much, there you go.
There you go. No, go fuck yourself. No, thank you. There you go.
The field's wide open now. It's just waiting for someone to go and take Steve Corino's place. So,
right. Well, John, I'm not blowing smoke up your butt, and I know it's been told you many times before, but there seriously could not be a more respected person in all of the EWA than yourself. Everyone just knows how talented of a writer you are, and you're friendly, and you're helpful, and you're always willing to go that extra mile for a feud, a match, anything that needs done. I feel like I could come to you for just about anything that I needed done. I could probably ask you, hey man, I'm going to be out of town this weekend. Can you write a Cody Rhodes segment for me? And you'd probably do it just because you're that nice and genuine of a person. So, I just want to tell you that, I think as much as Newt is the forefront and the center of the EWA and what keeps it going, I think you are the ambassador and, the main, thing that keeps the EWA going in a positive light around here. So, I know Steve Corino is done, but I hope you, John, are not done with the EWA because we definitely need you as a, someone going forward.
I think I'm going to cry. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry about it. And I'm still here, and I appreciate the kind words. And, you'll see me back in action sooner rather than later, definitely.
You heard it here first, boys. Steve Corino for Super Brawl confirmed. I want to thank everybody for listening to the EWA podcast. I have got a couple other private messages from people knowing, and I know that you want to come on to the podcast. More than happy to get you guys on the next couple of weeks. Looking to bring this back on a more consistent basis, just like the power rankings and magazines, right, Newt? Wink, wink. So it'd be nice to have the extras in the EWA going strong as they ever were. I want to thank John for coming on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Please feel free to leave feedback below. Make sure all of it's positive. And John, once again, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening.